Imagine living in a society where eating a simple bowl of white rice on your wedding day is, well, practically a crime.
Yeah, a literal crime.
Right. And not because you can't afford it, but because the very agricultural output of your entire country has been legally redirected to feed a foreign empire.
Leaving you to just, survive on barley and millet.
Exactly. The food you grow with your own hands is strictly forbidden to you. So, have you ever felt like your choices were backed into a corner by circumstances completely out of your control?
Where the rules of everyday life are just being rewritten by invisible powers.
Yeah, and you are just trying to survive the fallout. Welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack the opening chapters of Min Jin Lee's epic novel, Pachinko.
Which is just a massive, sweeping story.
It really is. We're spanning from 1910 to 1933 here, and the goal is to explore the intricate dynamics of survival, shame, and grace in early 20th century Korea.
And really examining how massive historical forces dictate the most intimate personal choices.
So true. We are looking at excerpts from Book 1, which is called Gohyang, or Hometown, and the beginning of Book 2.
Right, following the family of a disabled fisherman, his wife, and their daughter, Sunja.
Yeah, all the way to their migration to Osaka, Japan. Okay, let's unpack this. We have to establish the baseline of what survival actually looked like in colonized Korea.
Right, because it's not just survival, it's about maintaining quiet dignity.
Exactly. And the sources ground us right away with Hoonie. He's born with a cleft palate and a twisted foot. And in this era, there is absolutely no social safety net for someone with a physical disability.
None at all. But the text heavily emphasizes his golden character.
Yeah.
He's incredibly diligent. His peasant parents refuse to waste time mourning the loss of their nation to the Japanese. They just keep their heads down and take in boarders.
Right. It's that absolute pragmatism, which makes the matchmaker scene so incredibly visceral.
Oh, that scene is heartbreaking.
It is. The matchmaker approaches Hoonie's mother to offer a 15-year-old bride named Yangjin. And Yangjin is essentially being sold into marriage because her family is starving.
Right, and it's important to note why they are starving. It isn't a drought or a bad harvest.
Right.
It's directly tied to the colonial government's new land surveys.
Yeah, can you explain how that actually worked on the ground? Because that blew my mind.
Yeah, so the 1910 cadastral surveys were basically a bureaucratic weapon. The sources show that the Japanese colonial government required all landowners to register their land within this very specific brief window.
Using really complex legal documentation, right?
Exactly. And Korean tenant farmers, like Yangjin's father, were largely illiterate. They had farmed the same plots for generations based on verbal agreements and tradition.
They didn't have deeds.
They didn't have deeds. So, because they couldn't produce the sudden required paperwork, the colonial government legally confiscated the land.
Wow.
Overnight, millions of self-sustaining farmers were transformed into landless, starving vagrants.
So Yangjin's father is backed against a wall. The macro-level geopolitical policy directly forces him to marry off his youngest daughter for a bride price of, a few sacks of millet and some cotton cloth?
Yeah, just to get his family through the winter.
And while the matchmaker is negotiating this, there's this visceral detail where Hoonie's mother is sitting there, steadily dicing radishes into perfect, uniform cubes to hide her trembling hands.
She's so nervous.
She desperately wants a grandchild, but she has to maintain total stoicism to secure the deal.
It's a stunning display of quiet dignity in the face of absolute desperation. But what is truly remarkable is what grows out of this purely transactional arrangement.
Yeah, because it turns into a surprisingly tender marriage. I mean, I think of Hoonie and Yangjin's marriage like a house built out of scrap wood.
Oh, I like that.
Right. From the outside, society looks at it and pities them, a crippled man and a destitute girl. But inside, it's the warmest, most secure fortress in the country.
Completely contrasting with the castles of the corrupt aristocrats who lost Korea to the Japanese.
Exactly. Hoonie has this absolute devotion to Sunja, his daughter. He brings her sweet rice cakes, he carves her dolls out of corn cobs.
And that fortress mentality dictates their survival during the Depression at the Yeongdo boarding house. Hoonie's philosophy was that a man must care for his family first.
Pulling weeds, weaving sandals.
Right. Regardless of whether Japan or China is winning the war, we see this daily grind of survival where the lodgers, specifically the Chung brothers, like Fatso, debate geopolitics over dinner.
Oh yeah, Fatso is so confident that Japan can't conquer China.
But notice where he says it. He feels safe to mock the emperor, but only within the boarding house walls.
Right, because outside those walls, survival demands total silence.
Exactly. Survival meant keeping your head down.
So this foundation of relentless, honest work really sets Sunja's worldview. She is raised to believe that if you work hard and stay morally upright, you can survive.
But as she steps outside that fortress, she discovers that the world operates on much crueler rules.
Enter Koh Hansu, the predator in the white suit.
Yes, the illusion of rescue.
Sunja encounters him at the market. He totally stands out, right? He's in this crisp, white Western suit and leather shoes.
Signaling immense wealth.
And he rescues her from the harassment of these 3 Japanese schoolboys. But he does it using terrifying physical force and perfect Japanese slang to make them apologize.
He essentially subjugates the colonizers using their own language.
Sure.
It's a massive disruption of the power dynamics she's used to.
And then begins this secret courtship by the cove. He brings her foreign treats, American hard candies, English biscuits, and opens her eyes to a world beyond Yeongdo.
Which leads to the mushroom foraging trip where they consummate their relationship.
And the subsequent pregnancy. And here's the devastating reveal. When Sunja expects marriage, Hansu excitedly offers to make her a kept woman.
Right. He reveals he already has a wife and 3 daughters in Osaka.
And Sunja's absolute refusal here is wild. She just walks away, choosing total social ruin over living as a dishonored mistress. But wait, I have to ask, wasn't Sunja incredibly naive here?
It looks like that on the surface, yeah.
Right, like she assumed a wealthy man would just marry her. But when you look closer, she was 16 and he was 34.
Huge age gap.
He was worldly, wealthy, and manipulative. She didn't stand a chance. It wasn't naivete, it was an entirely rigged game.
It was rigged. But we also have to look at Hansu's perspective because he genuinely believes he is offering her a fantastic deal.
He really does.
He operates under the patriarchal norms of the wealthy, where men frequently kept multiple households. What's fascinating here is how Sunja's refusal is this shocking act of agency that redefines her life.
She chooses her father's morals over money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She prefers the ghost of her crippled, honorable father over the financial security of a powerful, dishonest man.
But man, that choice shatters her sheltered existence. She adheres strictly to that moral code, and by doing so, she plunges herself into a desperate situation.
She is pregnant and unmarried in a society that offers no mercy for that.
They need a miracle, and that miracle arrives in the form of Baek Isak.
The theology of sacrifice.
Yes. Isak is this sickly minister from Pyongyang. He arrives at the boarding house seeking his brother Yosib's old room, but he just collapses with tuberculosis.
He's on death's door.
And Yangjin and Sunja, instead of turning him away, they nurse him back to health over 3 months.
Risking their own lives and the boarding house business to do it, TB was highly contagious.
Right. And then, during a beach walk to strengthen his lungs, Yangjin tearfully confesses Sunja's ruined state to Isak.
And this triggers Isak's profound theological epiphany. He connects Sunja's plight to the biblical book of Hosea.
Okay, remind me how that connection works again.
So in the book of Hosea, the prophet is called by God to marry a quote-unquote ruined woman.
Oh, right.
To deeply understand God's unconditional love, Isak sees marrying Sunja not just as a favor, but as a divine calling.
So he proposes to Sunja over bowls of udon at a Japanese restaurant, which, by the way, is her first time ever in a restaurant.
Just a complete sensory overload for her.
I mean, Isak's decision is like someone jumping onto a grenade, but not in the heat of battle. It's like he sat down and calmly calculated the physics of the explosion.
That's a great way to put it.
He figured he'd die young anyway, so why not weaponize his own fragility to save 2 innocent lives? It's a radical repurposing of his own life.
It really is. But Pastor Shin is extremely skeptical when Isak tells him. He aggressively interrogates Sunja about her sin and warns Isak about his idealism.
Pastor Shin is all about pragmatic survival.
Exactly. He knows grace doesn't put food on the table. But Isak pushes through. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Isak's action proves that even in a colonized, impoverished society, individuals can still wield immense power through radical acts of grace.
It's a transaction of grace compared to Hansu's transaction of power.
Beautifully said. And it's mutual salvation. Isak isn't just dispensing charity. He is receiving the family he thought his health would forever deny him.
So Isak's intervention provides the escape hatch. They are leaving Korea for Osaka. And this brings us to the harsh reality of the quote-unquote promised land.
The departure scene is so moving.
Youngjin using her meager savings to buy highly restricted white rice from Cho, the rice seller.
Right, because she wants the newlyweds to taste it before leaving.
It's so dangerous, but she forces the issue. And she gives Sunja her mother-in-law's gold rings for emergencies.
A literal safety net in her pocket.
So they arrive in Osaka, and the visual contrast is jarring. You have the grand, modern Osaka train station with the electric trolleys.
And then they are taken to the squalid Korean ghetto of Ikano,
where Isak's brother Yoseb and his wife Hoonie are living in a tin-roofed six-mat shack.
which is tiny, and with a neighbor raising 3 pigs inside their actual house.
Inside the house, I can't even imagine the smell. And Yoseb immediately lays down these strict survival rules for Isak. Do not get involved in politics, no independence movement stuff.
And ironically, beware of other Koreans.
Yeah, that part was chilling.
He warns him that desperate Koreans might steal from them, just like they stole Kungi's jewelry.
It's so sad. And we see this play out on Isak's very first day at the church. He's counseling a brother and sister from Jeju who are completely torn apart.
Right, because the sister is taking money from a married Japanese manager to pay for her brother's schooling.
The same exact dynamic as Hansu and Sunja, but playing out under the crushing weight of migrant poverty. So I have to ask you and the listener, they escape the social stigma of an unwed pregnancy, but they step right into the systemic stigma of being Korean in 1930s Japan.
Yeah, it's a brutal trade-off.
So what does this all mean? Did Isak really save Sunja, or did they just trade a personal prison for a societal one?
This raises an important question about how poverty breeds desperation. Japan looks deeply prosperous with its electric lights and streetcars, but the Koreans are cordoned off in Ikano, living worse than they did in Yeongdo.
So the systemic racism just destroys solidarity among the oppressed class.
Exactly. We see it in Yoseb's fear of his own neighbors and the siblings fighting over the manager's money. Isak saved her intimate, familial future. Absolutely.
He gave her child a name?
Right. But he inadvertently dropped them into a new kind of survival game where the rules are dictated by industrialized discrimination.
Wow. Which perfectly encapsulates this incredible arc we've been on today. We went from the quiet, steadfast dignity of the Yeongdo boarding house to the devastating realization at the cove with Hansu, and finally to the bustling, hostile, and complex streets of Osaka.
It's a journey that really forces you to think. And, while you, the listener, may not face the macro-historical forces of 1930s colonization or the Great Depression,
Sure.
our most intimate personal choices, who we trust, who we love, how we react to shame, are constantly shaped by the pressures of the era we live in.
Absolutely. The board is always shifting around us, and I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder that really builds on everything we've talked about today.
Yeah.
If a single quiet act of kindness, like Yangjin and Sunja taking in a sick stranger and nursing him in a storage room, can entirely alter the trajectory of a family's bloodline and move them across an ocean, how might the small, seemingly insignificant choices you make today be writing the history of your own descendants a century from now?
That is a powerful thought.
It really makes you evaluate your daily decisions. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time.